Imagine a tiny bird the size of a sparrow, with a sweet voice and charming behaviors. At first glance, it's the perfect creature, a symbol of nature's harmony. But what if I told you that behind this harmless appearance lies something truly terrifying? This little bird is a real maniac, feared even by predators. This bird is the shrike, and its deadly tendencies astonish even scientists. He doesn't just hunt, he impales his prey on thorns and keeps his victims like a collection of trophies. And he kills even when he's not hungry. Why did nature create such a tiny but ruthless killer? And what dark secrets does this bird hide? While most birds kill solely for survival, the shrike is an exception to this rule. He can attack even when he's full. Hunting instinct. It's so strong that he kills for practice, for pleasure, or to intimidate competitors. He spots his prey from a high vantage point, whether it's from a tree, a fence, or a pole. His sharp eyes catch the slightest movement, whether it's a scurrying mouse, a carefree grasshopper, or an inexperienced young bird. When the moment comes, the shrike suddenly dives down with incredible speed and attacks. The force of his strike is surprisingly high for such a small bird. His beak is equipped with a hook at the end. This allows him to deliver powerful bites and break the neck vertebrae. Victims. He knows exactly where to strike to paralyze his prey. But the most horrifying part is that he doesn't always kill right away. Sometimes, he leaves his victim in a state of agony, and then calmly comes back to finish the job. But that's not even the scariest part. After all, the shrike doesn't just kill, it preserves its victims in the most unusual way. The shrike's most frightening habit is its strange love of collections. Having killed the prey, he is in no hurry to eat it. Instead, he carefully impales it on a thorny bush, a sharp branch, or even a barbed wire fence. For a long time, scientists could not understand why he was doing this. It turns out that these burials serve several purposes. First of all, it's a convenient way to store food for later. If there's plenty of food, he just creates a pantry for himself to come back to later. Secondly, it helps him deal with tough prey. For example, he leaves hard-shelled beetles, which are tough to peck at for a while. And after a couple of days, their shells become softer. But there's a third, the most terrifying reason. This is a display of power. These creepy cemeteries serve as a warning of sorts. This is my territory. This is my domain. Some males even use such altars to attract females. It's like, hey, look at this great hunter. But who can you most often see on these terrifying spikes of death? The shrike may seem like just a clever insect hunter, but its appetite is much wider. It eats grasshoppers, beetles, dragonflies, but does not disdain larger vertebrates, lizards, mice, and even small birds. Yep, this little bird can kill another feathered friend. It attacks sparrows, finches, and even young pigeons. There have been recorded cases where the shrike has attacked prey larger than itself, using the element of surprise and its ruthlessness. But what's most surprising is that sometimes it can even attack a larger feathered predator. For example, if a hawk or an owl enters his territory, he will not hesitate to attack, using swift strikes to the most vulnerable spots. So why is such a small bird so confident in its abilities? The answer lies in its advanced hunting methods, which we'll talk about next. The secret to the shrike's success lies not only in its bravery, but also in its cunning. One of the most amazing abilities of this bird is its mimicry of sounds. The shrike can imitate the singing of harmless birds, luring its prey into a trap. Young birds, hearing a familiar voice, come flying in at the call. And that's when they get the fatal blow. Moreover, some species of shrikes can even mimic alarm calls. This creates chaos among the small birds, and in that disorder, it's easier for the shrike to attack a confused victim. This ability makes him an even more dangerous predator, because he's not just strong and ruthless, but also incredibly smart. But even if the victim doesn't fall for the false call, the shrike has another trick up its sleeve. It uses natural toxins. Few people know that the shrike not only hunts, but also employs tactics worthy of a real poisoner. Its diet includes special insects that contain dangerous toxins. For example, it eagerly catches blister beetles, which have a deadly toxin in their bodies, cantharidin. Most birds avoid these beetles because they can cause paralysis or even death. But the shrike found a way to use them. It doesn't eat its prey right away. Instead, it stores it away, impaling it on a thorn or hiding it in a crevice. After a few days, the toxin gradually breaks down, and the beetle becomes safe to eat. But here's an even more amazing fact. The shrike sometimes deliberately feeds its chicks semi-poisonous prey. Scientists suggest that this is a form of vaccination that makes the young less vulnerable to predators. So, this tiny bird uses not just strength, but also chemistry to survive. But if it's so deadly to its victims, what happens when it has to face real predators? It would make sense to assume that a small shrike would avoid encounters with larger predators. But no. Not only is it unafraid, but it can even challenge hawks and owls. When the hawk is within its territory, the shrike acts boldly. It dives swiftly at the enemy, letting out sharp alarm calls. It attacks the eyes, neck, and back of the head, the most vulnerable spots even on large birds. There have been recorded instances of shrikes attacking owls, trying to blind them. This behavior is explained by the instinct to protect territory. The shrike simply cannot stand it. Intruders. But how does this tiny maniac pass on its cruelty to the next generation? It all starts with upbringing. Shrikes are caring parents, but their methods of upbringing can be called harsh. As soon as the chicks grow a little, the parents begin to bring them still live prey. This isn't done for fun. This is how the kids learn to kill. The chicks first carefully peck the victim, then grab it with their claws and try to break its neck. The most successful get more food, while the weak risk being left without food. If there are too many chicks in the nest and not enough food, the parents might get rid of the weakest ones. It's pure, harsh natural selection. Such harsh upbringing makes shrikes some of the most ruthless hunters, right from the first days of life. But what killing techniques do they master as they grow up? Sarcopita is not only a ruthless killer, but also an incredibly skilled hunter. He uses advanced tactics that make his attacks effective and deadly. Unlike most small birds that feed on insects and seeds, the shrike hunts like a true predator. He always chooses elevated spots. Treetops, fences, wires. From where he has a great view. He sits still, scanning for prey, and then suddenly dives down, attacking at speeds of up to 15 miles per hour. His main tool. A beak that's quite unusual for a small bird. At the tip there is a small hook, reminiscent of a hawk's beak. Thanks to this, he can easily pierce the skulls of small animals and break the necks of his victims. But the most terrible thing is that the shrike does not always kill instantly. If the prey is large, he can first stun it with blows of his beak and then finish it off. In some cases, it even uses the environment. He drops the prey onto rocks or impales it on thorns to make the kill easier. This behavior makes his hunting as efficient as possible. But what do the statistics say about his methods? Murders. To understand just how deadly the shrike is, let's take a look at the real facts. Scientists have observed its hunting behavior, and the results are shocking. In just one season, this tiny predator can kill up to 40 animals, ranging from insects to small birds. However, about 40% of its attacks aren't even related to hunger. It kills more than it needs and uses this to intimidate rivals and show off its strength. The attack speed reaches 15 miles per hour, which is incredibly fast for such a small bird. And the squeezing force of its beak allows it to pierce the skulls of rodents, break bones, and deliver fatal blows even to larger birds. But perhaps the most frightening fact is his cemetery. Scientists have found places where more than 20 victims were collected, carefully impaled on thorns and branches. These scenes look more like the lair of a serial killer than typical bird behavior. But why did nature create such a ruthless bird? Perhaps the answer lies in its habitat. The shrike is not just a hunter, he is also a real tyrant in his territory. Unlike most small birds, which prefer peaceful coexistence, it fiercely defends its territory, attacking anyone who dares to come close. This bird chooses strategically advantageous spots to live. Open spaces with shrubs, fields, and rare trees. Here he has excellent vantage points, and the vegetation serves as a natural arsenal for his creepy storage areas. What makes its territory truly intimidating? The thing is, the shrike doesn't just guard its territory, it sets up sacrificial alleys. Thorns, bushes, barbed wire, and branches are littered with the bodies of impaled victims. It's not just a stash, it's a display of power. Any bird or even a larger beast. Anyone who sees these horrifying trophies understands, but the shrike is in charge here. But what happens if someone bigger and stronger enters its territory? The answer is simple. The shrike won't back down without a fight. One of the most chilling aspects of the shrike's behavior is its attitude toward its prey. It doesn't just kill quickly and painlessly like many predators. On the contrary, he tortures his victims. Some hunters and researchers have noticed that the shrike often grabs its prey, strikes it with its beak and throws it. Then it picks it up again, strikes it again, and lets it go. And it does this several times. This behavior is reminiscent of a cat and mouse game, but with one key difference. The shrike isn't just playing, it enjoys the process of killing. Why does it do that? Maybe the reason is that the shrike is honing its hunting skills. Or is there really something about it that makes it more like a serial killer than just an ordinary predator? But how does it stack up against real predatory birds? Can it compare to hawks or even surpass them in cruelty? It is difficult to imagine that a tiny bird can compete with the real kings of the sky: hawks, falcons, and owls. But when it comes to hunting methods, the shrike is even more ruthless. A hawk is a quick killer. He instantly grabs the prey, crushes it with his powerful claws, and breaks its neck in just a few seconds. He doesn't have time for torture. His goal is to eat and survive. The shrike acts differently. He doesn't just kill, he shows cruelty. He can impale his victim on thorns, keep it, and watch it suffer. In that sense, he resembles a sadist more than an ordinary hunter. And the most surprising thing is that even hawks sometimes try to avoid this tiny but incredibly aggressive bird. The shrike isn't afraid to attack even larger feathered predators if they step onto its territory. But why has this little bird become so aggressive? Perhaps it is because she grew up in a world where only the cruelest survive. And this makes it dangerous even for the most experienced hunters. Usually, when we talk about birds, we imagine either cute sparrows or majestic birds of prey soaring in the sky. But the shrike breaks all stereotypes. He's a tiny killer who couldn't care less about the size or status of his prey. What makes him so dangerous? First of all, it's his ruthlessness. He doesn't back down, even if the prey is stronger or bigger. Secondly, his cunning. He can lure prey with false sounds, can sneak up, or can attack as quickly as lightning. But the most terrifying fact is that the shrike isn't just a predator. He's a showy killer. His graveyard, littered with corpses impaled on thorns, makes even larger animals steer clear of his territory. So, where did this little bird come from? Why does it combine incredible cruelty with predatory cunning? Perhaps the answer lies in legends and myths. The shrike's creepy behavior couldn't help but catch people's attention. In different cultures, there are legends and beliefs associated with this strange bird. In some regions of Europe, the sarakapoot was considered a bird of death. People believed that if they saw it near their home, it could be a harbinger of trouble. Maybe this image came about because of his tendency to impale his victims on thorns. Scenes that could remind ancient people of gruesome executions. In Scandinavian myths, the saraput was sometimes called a cursed bird, and in some American Indian tribes it was believed to be associated with the spirits of war and violence. But science shows us not a myth, but a reality. And sometimes, it's scarier than any legend. The shrike is a real maniac in the world of birds. He's not the biggest, not the strongest, but he's the most brutal. So, should we really be surprised that even hawks prefer to steer clear of this tiny but deadly creature? The shrike is the perfect proof that looks can be deceiving. Who would have thought that this little bird, seemingly harmless at first glance, with its beautiful song and caring parental instincts, would turn out to be a real serial killer among the feathered ones? So next time, when you hear the ringing song of the shrike, remember, behind that melodic voice hides a true feathered butcher, who won't hesitate to tear apart any victim that crosses his path.